Some concerns that are not being covered yet with the growing problem of misclassification of port drivers, especially in my two biggest ports in the area, Los Angeles and Long Beach, where hundreds of drivers are being forced by unscrupulous trucking companies into working as independent operators as a way for the companies to pay drivers below minimum wage, and then they deny them benefits, creating an unlivable wage for them and their families. These truck drivers are forced to lease trucks at prices they can't afford. Common example is a truck driver being paid $200 a day, but having to pay lease fees of $190 a day, leaving $10 a day. Some of the drivers are actually making less than the leasing costs, and they are in debt. And if a truck driver misses one payment, the truck driver is appropriated, taken from them. It is unthinkable that companies continue to get away with a scheme to underpay truck drivers who are hardworking people. And so consequently, when there's a shortage of truck drivers, you wonder why they leave the type of employment and go to somewhere else to get a better coverage for the families. Mr. Spear, what is the American Trucking Association doing to stop these bad actors?
I appreciate the question, Congresswoman. You and I discussed this at length previously. I promised you I was going to go to the Port of LA. I did that. I visited all 7 terminals, spent a lot of time there looking at the situation. We've also canvassed our members on this issue. I'm unaware of any of our members that are abusing that. I do not deny, however, that it's not happening. And I think for any bad actor that is pressuring drivers into a situation that's not sustainable, that they can't afford the equipment, they're pigeonholed into it, and they can't get out, that's a situation that needs to be remedied. How widespread it is, I honestly, from that visit and those discussions, still do not have, a conclusive idea of how widespread this problem is. I think it's fairly isolated. Nonetheless, it's a problem. If it's existing, it needs to be dealt with. And I think working with our federal regulators as well as state, definitely need to coordinate this and understand, how it can be remedied.
Representative, every lease purchase program is that bad situation. It's not just in California. Every time a truck driver gets roped into one of these lease purchase programs where they're promised, hey, we're going to give you keys to a truck, come drive for our company. The next thing you know, all of the money they earn goes into the equity of that truck, and these poor people, these poor truck drivers are then saddled with not being able to take any money home to pay their mortgage or their families. I'd love to get ATA on record saying that they're against the lease purchase programs for the entire industry. I'd love to get that right now.
Or hopefully get banks or credit unions to purchase for them the trucks without having to pay big interest rates. Mr. Noble, Mr. Craig, what are the business community and the broker community doing in your industries to not contract with the trucking companies that use abusive labor practices and misclassify their workers?
At Pepsi, obviously at PepsiCo, we have our own private fleet. So we try to put as much of our freight on our own private fleet that we know, the actors. We know the safety records. We know we have the control. But as you mentioned, 50% of our freight moves with carriers. And we do contract with our friends at C.H. Robinson on that. And so we do depend. And we make sure we're picking the right partner, carrier partner, that is selecting the right carrier to move our freight safely.
Mr. Craig?
Yeah, I would actually point to the new California rule around checking if a carrier has been had a judgment against them on an employment law. That's a great example of how good regulation will work to have the effects on the industry that you're talking about. We check the list that the Department of Labor of California publishes frequently to make sure that we're not hiring those carriers. So
And we have a good enforcement attorney general, Mr. Becerra.
Exactly, but the key there is the clear indication of who to hire and who not, and to be able to reinforce the decisions of the California Department of Labor. Absolutely.
Mr. Byrd, do you have any comment, concern over this misclassification?
Yes, I know that we have a port division that works tirelessly to work closely with drivers to ensure that they are properly classified. And it's my understanding that there may have been some litigation and other activities surrounding properly classifying drivers.
Mr. Spear, I hope
Thank you
that we
very
can
much.
continue working.
Your time has